I'm Sako, he, him, working at a company called Gladly as a senior platform engineer. Today we're going to talk about same-day teleport delivery. So what does it mean? You're going to know in a bit. So let's get started. The agenda is quite packed. Okay, so in DevOps security, things moving so fast, so frequently that by the end of the day of the talk, some of the technologies you see may be already replaced with alternate ones. So stay tuned. Before I start, how are you feeling? Cold? Okay, awesome. Let's do it. Okay, a bit about background. So we, as a platform team, continuously upgrade and redeploy all our infrastructure tools. It's for the security at the same time to get the benefit of new features. So as part of all the compliance, you have to do it at least once quarterly. And this is, and as a team, we always go after long-term solutions rather than trying to patch things and move fast. So what's DORA? DORA is a research organization at Google, which they come up with a term. So they came up how you can evaluate the performance of the DevOps team. So they came with these 4 terms. Deployment frequency, how frequently you are shipping or releasing your software. Lead time for the change. Once you introduce any change, how much time it takes it to be deployed to production. Mean time to recovery, when there is any issue or bug happening, getting introduced, how much time it takes to fully recover. And change failure rate, what's the percentage of that failures versus the successful deployments. That being said, and as a DevOps team, Google categorizes them low, medium, high, elite team, which is, if you look at everybody going after elite team, which is quite aggressive. So it means you have to at least redeploy a couple times a day. You have to, once you introduce any new change, it has to be in production in less than an hour. And when there is an issue, it should be under an hour resolved. And the failure rate should be under 15%. So quite aggressive. So how we get there? That's a question. Before getting there, we have to understand there is a thing called toil. What does it mean? Over time, to maintain the software, it increasing the scope of maintenance or the number of infrastructure. For example, every tool you are adding, it increases the scope. And at the same time, it decreases your speed of maintaining the software. So as Google SRE recommends, in order to reduce the toll, you have to track them as a separate project rather than bake into existing projects. So if you don't do, you're going to face some problems. And these problems going to be you're going to need to either go to market and hire more team members. The playbooks and documentation going to be outdated because it's going to burn the team. There's going to be so much stuff to do that the quality of the documentation and playbooks and everything going to go down. At the same time, it's just boring. And deployment scope and time will vary, and you will be in a state that it will be your infrastructure going to be in uncontrollable or unpredictable state if you don't take care of the toil. So let's now look at software development stages. So it's pretty much, there are so many things going inside, but today we're going to focus on the deployment piece. So the key metric going to be how we can deploy new releases faster and frequently. So obviously start with design, develop, test, which is same. And there are so many, so why we are focusing on the deployment teams? Because as a DevOps team, there are so many software that you are not developing, you are just maintaining as a DevOps team or platform or security. And your job is to keep them up to date and make sure that they are robust and not breaking. So now let's look at deployment phase sub-stages a bit more closely. So that's what we came up with sub-stages. It's similar to the way Terraform handles, if you're familiar, infrastructure as a code, like initializing, planning, and applying. And we added verify and validate once you deploy it into the production or load environments. You go and verify that it works as expected, and that's what you were planning, the target release. And then you do the reporting. You have to track, if you want to improve that process, you have to track how much time you spend, how many upgrades you have done, and so forth. Then next time you go and improve. Or if you have a new team member, they can jump in and you won't need to do a transfer. So now let's look at analogy. The analogy would be autonomous software driving. So you don't have to solve all the problem in one shot. So if you look at how autonomous car driving doing, they are moving level by level. So if we apply the same terms to the deployment maturity levels, we'll call, you start with L0 manual stage, where you have error-prone deployment, it's not repeatable, no playbook, no testing guide, and no upgrade strategy. Whoever jumps, they have to go through the README, the documentation of the software, and try to understand and try to do some manual work, and then finally, it should work as expected. So this is a manual state where you start. And then let's say next step would be manual assistance. So you don't have to go to full automation from L0. You say, what's the next best thing I can do? So at least you make it more repeatable that anybody in your team can jump and do it. So that's, even if it's manual, it has to have a good playbook, which is more robust, which you do the testing and so forth. And that's saying it's becoming more delegatable and you can distribute across your team. Once you come to that stage, next is semi-automation. So in that stage, you say, OK, I have repeatable playbooks, and I can use a Python, I can use a shell script, and whatever, how I can automate that. So now, because you already have that manual playbook, it's becoming much easier as a team come together and make it more automated or semi-automated. You may still leave some work to do, like it's not full automated. You still need to go check the project. We know we are using a lot of open source projects, which they do it differently. Yeah, like they do security differently. They have a different testing strategy, and it's really hard to automate. So you have to go manually review the change log. Sometimes even they don't have a change log or release, and the Helm chart, for example, if you are using it, it's in different place, and sometimes they are even no longer maintaining. So back and forth. So once you have semi-automation as a next step, you move to conditional automation, where you say, OK, you go say, I have this 50 open source project which I'm using in my infrastructure or dependency, we can say. How I can, at least even I customize or come up with a general strategy that I can receive a list of when there is any new release and so forth, and I can hook up and just get these updates regularly, and then reevaluate, even so, again, some left the manual work. And then you look at your cost strategy or depreciation, and we're going to talk now software selection and dependency management as well. So once you are coming to the next level, probably you have done most of the automation, and you just go click the button to push to production, and you go find more interesting work to do. So that is, don't worry, your job is safe. There is always going to be work to do. So you can always find stuff. So get rid of the toil. OK, oh my God, time is pushing. OK, the last final step, ideal state, if you can get to that state, is full automation, where you have end-to-end automation. Things break in production, it's fine. It will self-heal and we'll fix it. If not, you will get alert. You will fix it next day. So just enjoy. Sit and enjoy. And have you heard Golden Pass? How many of you heard Golden Pass? One? OK. Let's do it. What is that? So Golden Pass is, some teams came with that. They call it differently, but because there are so many times you start a new service and so forth, you start with reusable components. You have to do the same thing again and again. How we can come up with reference Git repository where we put all this stuff and bake in observability and so forth, and then we don't start from scratch every time. So we have at least decent pre-baked infrastructure, reference architecture or whatever, and we take it and reuse it and customize it or extend. So which adds more speed in the beginning when we start. So that being said, one of the key questions when you are selecting software, you have to categorize it. So this is, if the tool just came, it's emerging, it's a bit safe and unsafe. You have to wait. Maybe in a short time it will be no longer maintained or security won't be handled in the right way. So the best would be to pick from the recommended list of software, and we will look at the criteria usually you can come up with that. If it's depreciated, it's not recommended. Some project also could be in the categories as rejected that you should not use. But you should have that kind of, for each project you are introducing or adding your infrastructure, do that exercise and just pick the one that will fit your criteria. And so different teams, they do this is specifically for open source. You could also have for the vendor when you are picking for the open source, just a couple examples we usually look for. But again, it should be as much as repeatable across, and we should write it down, because later we may need to come back and reevaluate our decision. Because some of the tools may just be stopped maintained, no longer maintained, and you need to be proactive just to seize the risk and go and give enough room to replace them on time. So there is no, you see, any specific vendor, because you can pick any tool in place. You can put for CI, CD, and so forth, or WAF. But this could be a good golden pass, good start for functional architecture. And the key one you see is access management, which now we're gonna focus on that example. So, which is, no surprise, is Teleport. At Gladly, we love Teleport, and we love also open source community edition of the project. So if you're starting, if you're in the early stage, you can definitely go try out with open source version. And recommendation would be you can use various ways of deployment. One would be using the Helm chart and using Helm file to do that piece. So, and if you have any manual configuration, you can put them in the separate chart, and then you can install Teleport cluster and agent. So Helm file is you started. And then the recommended, you can have a local or via GitHub SSO. It's recommended if you are using open source version to use GitHub, and you bind your teams, users, and repositories, and you do all the access for roles in the GitHub side, and you just create similar roles in the Teleport side. So use GitHub, it's much easier for SSO. And now, 1 week ago, this one is coming to the new project. It came Helm dashboard, probably if you have seen or not. So it's Helm plugin. You can install in your local machine, and then you can pick the latest software release, and you can just upgrade it. So there are other things it's also adding. One is you can check your manifest with a Chekhov project, which is another open source project, and just see any misconfiguration and any recommendation and so forth. And you can also do image scanning with Trivi using that Helm dashboard project. And it will just give you the list of vulnerabilities. You have to go and fix it. So Now let's talk about observability. So there are amazing projects that you can hook in as a software as a service to your project, but if you are just beginning and you don't have many options, and if you want to go this hosted version, I would recommend using Istio Service Mesh, which will out of box will give you some of these tracing metrics and so forth. So when it comes to our teleport case, you can use Prometheus, Grafana, Jagger for the tracing, Kiali, and all these will give you your much more visibility after your deployment and track the metrics. And there is amazing documentation also in Teleport website for backup and restoration. So it's well architectured, so you don't have to worry a lot about that. Even so, it's a community edition. You can just put in your code base the configuration related, and you should be good to go. And anytime you will just redeploy your application, it should be good. Okay. So last thing, if you have any worry and if you wanna do a bit more house engineering, it's good to know, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So how you can play out. So once you automated your boring stuff, you can go and play with the project like that and just try to create a problem while you don't have a problem. So, and according to Gremlin, you just start experimenting with a small scope, and as much as possible, smaller, and then slowly you increase and see where your bottlenecks. So bottleneck is a thing that you will always hit somewhere. So, but earlier you find you will have more time to go and fix them. And this is wrap up. And another knowledge I will just give the last line. So probably most of you have seen AWS well-architectured infrastructure. So you can take it and apply it to, in our case, to Teleport and just reevaluate your tool and the deployment piece. And the eventual goal will be you will be able to redeploy probably at least as soon as it's going to be released, you will let it go redeploy to your development and then on production and then to production probably within a day. So with that being said, it's never-ending process. You have to continuously revisit all your tooling and architecture and the deployment strategy. It's not like once you set up and you're done, and there are always things going to be breaking. But once you're in a good shape, you have to just be proactive and focus on the things like cost, how you can make it more, your infrastructure more elastic and scale, and see, and take it from there, higher performance and so forth. Okay, I think I am done. And if any questions so far?
Yeah, please put your hand up. There you go.
Thank you.
So I had a question around chaos engineering. So you mentioned chaos engineering, and in the context of Teleport, are you doing any actual chaos engineering running Teleport in Kubernetes today? Like randomly killing things?
So I will say we are not there yet.
Okay.
Because we are still targeting for the full automation stage. But I think we are close.
It's a goal. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Which protocols are you using, Seiko?
Sorry?
Which protocols are you using? Kubernetes or server access, using databases?
Oh, which part?
Yeah.
I think starting with Kubernetes, that's the key one. It helps to scale very well. And then application next, I will say, and the database helps a lot, especially with audit functionality. And for example, also SSH piece for all your Kubernetes node you can manage. That's all amazing, either infrastructure, application, or database. We use all of them, and we are happy.
Yeah, and is all of your hosting in AWS, or do you have other cloud providers?
Yeah, we are mainly in AWS, but on the side, I also played in GCP and works pretty well, so no issues.
It's a question. Kat?
In the cloud native slide, you mentioned running stateless applications in Kubernetes. What is your opinion on running stateful applications in Kubernetes, and are you currently running any stateful applications like databases or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. So I was also going in early stages to Kubernetes meetup, and one of the key contributors, I asked it, they said, Kubernetes for the stateless application. So that's kind of main recommendation, but things are changed. I'm saying like for a couple years, and definitely the data is expensive and one of the critical piece, and there is operators in Kubernetes you can handle with Postgres or all these databases, but still it's better to go through that exercise to have backup and exit strategy and good disaster recovery plan. Because you never know, things will always break, and the question is how much time it will take you to fix it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Gus?
What would you say was kind of the biggest thing about Teleport that you learned out of doing this, like in terms of the process of operationalizing this kind of continuous deployment and stuff? What would you say was kind of the biggest lesson you took away from that?
I think the biggest lesson was also, I was reading the book from Evie, two things, yeah, like perimeterless, you don't have to deal with a VPN thing. And second, and like secrets are not secure thing. Secret, okay, let me say that phrase. Any secret is not secret if two out of three people are dead, so something like that. So that being said, like Teleport helps like identity-based authentication. I think that's really amazing, and helps to scale so much the team and productivity. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, what's your strategy on testing Teleport? New releases and like CI/CD of Teleport itself?
Yeah, that's another amazing question. So depending on your use cases, though, you are not going to go test every functionality of the Teleport if you are not using, and we let our peer team, they do it and they continuously release. But the thing, you can start small, what mentioned, like you just, for example, you create a big user or team and test what your daily flow and make sure once you release. Obviously, everything should be green, but once everything is green, you can still go and do some automated testing. And you can have just additional user creation, for example, role creation and so forth, and make sure that they still can go access and so forth. So you can do it in component level as well, like Kubeagent, Node, and so forth. But having that custom test strategy, I think, will help you to identify earlier than somebody is coming and saying, hey, after upgrade, I can't do that. So, and doing in lower environment and then giving a couple days and rolling to production, usually safer. But if you have robust testing, you can do it within a day. So it's how much confidence you have in your deployment and testing.
Seko, I know you've been a customer for, I think, is it 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
Which version of Teleport are you currently on, and how's that upgrade procedure been since you're such a long-term user?
Current version? Currently, we have 10.1.2, but for the demo when I was testing, it was the latest 11.01 version. So we are continuously upgrading, and we recently did. We do it, and probably it's going to be in next upcoming week. Also, we'll go to the 11 each.
Okay, great. Any last questions? Okay, please give another round of applause for Seiko, please.
Yeah. Feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or just if you can also share email. And thank you, our amazing platform team. I'm just going to shout out because this is all work. I can't take all this credit. And thank you so much for your time.